من فضلك اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, my ninth grade. Today inshallah we will discuss the lesson اللي هو unit title across the continents. Okay, before we start we have to read the words اللي هو the vocabulary section. Words. This lesson is page 62. We have this organizer, this person, اللي هو Scott, and we are going to talk about pole and how the pole was traveled by Mr. Scott and other explorers. So across the continents, عبر القارات. Okay, starting from the word. We have the first word is blizzard, condition, expedition, explorer, exposure, frostbite, pioneer, and tragic. A blizzard means a snowy storm. Condition, something usually a bad situation or a situation. Expedition means just like a journey, a scientific journey. Explorer is the one who goes, the adventurer, the one who goes and explore the world. Exposures means something like an experience. Frostbite, when you got hurt by ice, by snow, then you have a frostbite. اللي هي in Arabic زي عضة from ice. Pioneer means when you do something or the person who does something for the first time. This is a pioneer, a ra'id. Tragic, a very bad situation. The question says here, read the text. What problems did Scott face on his journey to the South Pole? If you look at this picture, you can see a person, هذا Scott, and he traveled to the South Pole. He was the explorer, or the first person, or he thinks that he was the first person to travel to the South Pole. The question says, or the assignment says, write a summary about these problems and discuss Scott's journey with a partner. What did he do? What was the problems that faced him while traveling to the South Pole? Let's start reading. بيقول لي Scott's race to the pole. Then after reading these questions, you have as an assignment to do a summary for the problems that Scott faced while traveling, while his journey to the South Pole. For the past century, we're talking about 100 years ago. Century, that means 100 years ago. People have admired Robert Falcon Scott. Then people have admired Robert Falcon Scott. And who is Robert Falcon Scott? Scott is a pioneer who attempted to be the first person to the South Pole, who attempted to be and to travel to the South Pole, إلى القطب الجنوبي, right? الآن let's move to the second part or the second paragraph. We are dealing with and this is a year, اللي هو in 1910, just like a century ago, يعني قبل 100 سنة. In 1910, Scott led his second expedition. We have expedition like journey, another journey, and he did it before, and then he is about to do it again for the second time. Expedition. زي حملة to the Antarctic. Antarctic, this is a continent in the world, القطب الجنوبي. He and his crew means people to go with him, اللي هو الطاقم, He and his crew arrived in January 1911 and set up camp in McMurdo Sound. This is a place where they set camp. As they traveled south, their destination is to the south. They want to go to the south. If you are about to remember the four directions, we have north and south, east and west. As they traveled south, they met awful conditions. Conditions like ظروف, situations, bad situations. نشوف the problems that or he and his crew faced while doing their journey. Conditions, their sledges and ponies could not cope. Even the dogs had to turn back. Even the dogs had to turn back. And this is the first condition. Eventually, there were just 5 men left. And from the crew, there were many. But the people who are to survive the journey, they're just a few. We have 5 people or 5 men left. Who are those people? We have Scott, Wilson, Oates, Bowers, and Evans. These are the people who survived the situation. They battled on. They struggled. They struggled a lot. And I say, what does battled on mean? Battled on means struggled to survive. But when they reached the South Pole on 17th January 1911, then they reached the South Pole on 17th of January. This is the date in which they reached the South Pole, اللي هو in 1912. They found a small tent with a Norwegian flag. The Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen reached the pole a month before Scott. Then he was in a way with a campaign اللي هو مين another explorer. Here we have another explorer, and his nationality is Norway. He's from Norway, from Europe. Explorer اللي هو his name is Roald Amundsen. This is the person. He reached the pole before Scott. Now let's go to the paragraph before the last. Like all people who have been beaten, the men were extremely disappointed when they started their return journey. And they traveled to the South Pole. Now they want to go back to their homes, to their original hometowns. When they returned back, there was like a beaten, there was like another conditions to be faced. They struggled through blizzards and نشوف المشاكل أو other conditions, other problems that they faced. They struggled through blizzards. Blizzards, as I said from the words, blizzards here means like a storm, a snowy storm, and it causes a lot of hard conditions to the people who face it. Blizzards. Evans died in February, and then Oates. This is like a tragedy, a very bad thing to be think of. Died. Who died here? We have Evans died. Those are members of the crew. Evans died in February, and then Oates, who had severe frost bite. He was beaten by a frost bite. When I say a frost bite, like something very harsh happens to your skin while you are side by side with cold weather. This is the frostbite. عضة أو قرصة من الجليد. Right. Who had severe frostbite walked out into the freezing conditions on his 32nd birthday. He didn't return. He didn't return. اللي هو Oates. Oates didn't return. He died. Yes, this is like a tragedy of what happened to Scott and his crew, his friends. He didn't return. Let's go to the line 15. The remaining 3 men finally died of starvation and exposure on 29 March 1912. They were, or they're dead, they died because of the bad weather, because of they didn't find something to eat. That's why they died of starvation and exposure. Yes. On 29 March 1912. Tragically, they were only 20 kilometers from a food supply. And this is to make the bad situation worse. He says here, tragically, they were only 20 kilometers from a food supply. 8 months later, let's see now what happened after this event. 8 months later, a search party found their tent and their diaries. And how did we know their trip? How did we know what did they face from their diaries that was found by 8 months after the trip? A search party found their tent and their diaries. Their notebooks, letters, and diaries described the tragic events. And then they described the tragic events that happened to them by their books, by their notes that they written inside their diaries. Since then, the last 2 lines here, we are going to read the last 2 lines here. Since then, Scott's bravery has been greatly admired by the British people. And then he was British, yani from England, from Europe. Since then, Scott's bravery, he was a very brave. Bravery here is a noun. If I want to make an adjective, I say this is a brave person, yani رجل شجاع, right? Has been greatly admired by the British people, and he has become a national hero. He has become a national hero for or in Britain, the United Kingdom. Thank you guys for listening and wish you a happy day. This is what all we have about this lesson. Thank you and see you next meeting.